Hey everyone, Katie Sergeant Steele here, and today I have another unit review for you, and this time we are talking about the Heavy Weapons Squad. So real quick, before I dive into the unit, I want to talk about the models I have in front of me. I only have one of the new Cadian kits painted up currently. I am working on more. I have two other kits, but I've just been prioritizing other models and really haven't gotten to my other ones. So I am using some of the older Cadian kits, as well as I have my Vestroyan Heavy Bolter team back here and my Valhallan Mortar team here, which is really, really cool to have. So if I can get that in focus for a minute so you can take a look at that. There's lots of amazing classic models that are part of the heavy weapons range, and so if you're ever lucky to get your hands on them, definitely check them out. I highly recommend it. I did rebase my Vestroyan to be on the proper size base for the new units, and it actually worked out. I mean, my guy's little foot's hanging off there, but you know, so be it. It looks awesome, and I'm very excited to hopefully use it in future games. Let's dive into unit and talk about why this unit is really so classic and so awesome. So, as always, we start with stats. We have movement 6, toughness 3, 5 up save, 2 wounds, leadership 7, and OC 2. Now that's per base. So in total, we have 6 wounds in a squad and OC 6 potential, because you get 3 models in a unit. So that's not bad. Now for the weapons, and we will spend some time on this because that's the point of this unit. We have a whole array of heavy weapons. So with that, we have the autocannon, which I have modeled my newest set of models with. We have the heavy bolter. We have the las cannons. We have the mortars. And not shown here, surprisingly, and I didn't realize I had done this because I guess I disassembled them to build something else, is the missile launchers. And I used to have a whole squad of missile launchers, and they're all gone. So I definitely cut them up to build one of these other options. And I don't have them anymore, so I'll have to build some new ones. All right, so let's dive into each of these weapons and go through it one by one, because they're all pretty important. There's also, just to make a quick mention, a las small arms, which is an 18-inch pistol, 1 shot, ballistic skill 4, strength 3, 0 AP, 1 damage. So basically it's like an 18-inch range las pistol on all the models, and we lost the las guns like they used to have. I don't know why they made these changes, but it's just the way it is. And then they also have their close combat weapon, but so they don't have the las guns anymore. They just have this weird specialty pistol, and I'm hoping by the time the codex comes out, they just make it a las pistol. I don't know why we need a special 18-inch pistol. So let's talk about the actual heavy weapons here, which is the key of this unit. So first we have the autocannon. It is heavy, and there will be a trend here. All of the primary weapons on a heavy weapon squad will be heavy keyword. 48-inch range, 2 shots, ballistic skill 5, strength 9, -1 AP, 3 damage. So that means if it sits still, you'll be hitting on 4s with the heavy rule. With 2 shots, that's 6 shots each with a blob of autocannons, so that's pretty good, especially at strength 9 AP, 1 flat 3. Then we have the heavy bolter. It's, imagine this, it's heavy, sustained hits 1, 36-inch range, 3 shots each. Ballistic skill 5, strength 5, -1 flat 2. So that's these over here, which we can definitely enjoy. Then we have the las cannons, once again heavy. They have 48-inch range, 1 shot each. Ballistic skill 5, strength 12, -3 d6 + 1. So these are definitely your anti-armor, if you're unfamiliar with the heavy weapons. The missile launchers, which I do not have to show here, but they have 2 options. They have a frag and a crack. Both are heavy. The frag option also has the blast keyword, so you'll be getting an extra +1 attacks per 5 models at the enemy unit you're shooting at. 48-inch range, D6 attacks, ballistic skill 5, strength 4, no AP, 1 damage. Not bad. But then the crack, which is also heavy, 48-inch range, 1 shot, ballistic skill 5, strength 9, -2 d6 damage, which is actually what makes the missile launcher one of the best heavy weapon options, because it's very versatile. You could kill infantry with it, or you could try to take out kind of low toughness vehicles or monsters or elites with it. It's really not bad at that. Then we have the classic, the famous, the mortars, which have long been a favorite staple of people who run heavy weapons teams. So those are blast, heavy, and indirect fire, and that's what makes those so popular. 48-inch range, D6 attacks, ballistic skill 5, strength 5, no AP 1 damage. Now, no AP is a bit of a bummer because it has indirect, and everything that you shoot at with indirect that you do not have line of sight of gets the benefit of cover. So giving it AP -1 would have helped negate the cover save, but that's just the way it is. But the mortars are still really effective, especially at strength 5. It's really good. So let's talk about what makes this unit special, its ability. And I'm going to go into the strategy and overall how I like to use them. So with this unit, it has the ability covering fire. Each time you target this unit with the fire overwatch stratagem, while resolving that stratagem, hits are scored on an unmodified hit rolls of 5+, or on unmodified hit rolls of 4+ instead, if this unit is within 6 inches of one or more friendly platoon units. Okay, so essentially, heavy weapons teams get really, really good overwatch, and that can be really important depending on how you're building your list and your play style. Now, particularly, they're going to be hitting on 5s no matter what in Overwatch. Really good. One thing that matters a little less for is the mortars. The reason being is you'll want them tucked away in cover, so they're usually not going to have line of sight to be able to do Overwatch. But all of your other options here, your heavy bolters, your las cannons, your missile launchers, and your autocannons, those all will have line of sight to units, hopefully. Maybe they won't be fully exposed, but they'll have line of sight. And so you'll be hitting on 5s in Overwatch. And that's almost like getting free shooting. Now, the last part of that rule is within 6 inches of a platoon unit. I think that's a really interesting thing. And to my recollection, it's the only thing that triggers off of the platoon keyword. So you may not be aware of what has the platoon keyword. That is the Cadian Shock Troops, Catachan Jungle Fighters, Death Corps of Krieg, the Infantry Squad, and the Platoon Command Squad. So that's really interesting. There's only 5 units. Not even the heavy weapons teams have it. Nothing else. No other command squad. Just the Platoon Command Squad of all things. And so 5 units have it. So there are several different ways you could kind of set this up. I mean, one way, which is pretty typical in terms of strategy, you would put your heavy weapons behind a screen of infantry, right? So you would have Cadians or Death Corps of Krieg or infantry squads or Catachans in front of them. These would be behind them with line of sight out towards the middle of the table. And then when something moves within 24-inch range, you use the fire overwatch stratagem and you're hitting on 4s. It's basically free shooting. And you really can't beat that. You just punish your opponent for coming at you, which is what they're going to do because you're guard, right? As soon as they touch you, you evaporate. So that makes the heavy weapon squad really good, actually, in terms of defensive strategy for the guard. You can place these up and get a unit nearby to them, and then they shoot really well. Now, you may be asking, well, of course, they could kill the infantry squad. Yeah, but they could also kill the heavy weapon squad. We're guard, we're very fragile, so you may want to have some redundancy or some additional protections. So with that, there's a few different ways you would also want to set these up. So let's talk about how I would deploy a heavy weapon squad. First thing, I would do one of 2 options. I would put them into terrain that they could see out of. Now, I like playing Warhammer 40,000 rules as written when it comes to terrain, and so if there's windows, I can see out of them. None of this WTC crap. I find that boring. Usually, if you have a dense enough table of terrain, it doesn't matter anyways. There should be multiple layers of buildings as you go back through the battlefield to help block line of sight, or scatter terrain to help just grant the benefit of cover to diminish the power of shooting straight across the table. If you're not playing this way, then you're probably running narrative boards, you're still building your collection, or you're just a glutton for punishment. One of the two. So I will usually set them in terrain, but also where they're hidden and where they can shoot out into lanes of fire towards the middle of the table or flanks. It depends on the context, right? Who am I up against? What's the mission? Where are we at? And I'll try to pick key corridors. For instance, if I got autocannons here, I know my opponent has terminators, right? So those are 3 wounds apiece. I may want to set these up where I think they're going to be deep striking their terminators, and then I can fire Overwatch into them. Or perhaps they have elites and monsters that I also need to fire the autocannons into. And I'll try to set these up on a flank or down the middle, hidden in terrain, where they can make those shots. Then I'm going to usually screen these. So I'm going to put an infantry squad in between them and try to keep, that kind of 18 inches can screen out most things, because 9 inches from one unit, 9 inches from the other, and then nothing can get in between. So always ask your opponent ahead of time, hey, do you have anything that can deep strike within less than 9 inches? And so to make sure that your screens are effective. And so I will place infantry units here in the front and then keep these kind of well screened out to keep them protected and to keep them shooting. You'll also want to put them in terrain just so they have cover. Another option you have is the Aegis defense line. I know fortifications are not popular, but it is an option. It grants you an invuln save, it gives you a cover save, get your opponents also a cover save, technically. Read the rules on it, or go watch my unit review video on the Aegis defense line to understand how it works in more detail. But that's the other option you can have. I do like the idea of getting that invulnerable save. That's really, really nice to be able to do that. So I'll set them up there, and I'll just make sure I punish anything that pops out. And that'll be an effective way to do it. Now, that's if you're running any of the direct fire weapons, right? Autocannons, heavy bolters, las cannons, and missile launchers. That's how you're going to run this unit, and that's where you're going to get the benefit of covering fire. For your mortars, you're going to want to hide them back in the corner somewhere. They got 48-inch range. They can hit most of the table. Just tuck them away and have them plink away at the opponent's infantry and just be an absolute nuisance. That's all they're going to do. You can give them take aim. It will help negate the -1 from indirect fire. And so they have ballistic skill 5, they have heavy. So then you hit on 4s. With indirect, you go back to 5s. Then with take aim, you can go back up to 4s. And with the current balanced data slate indirect fire rules, you can never hit on better than a 4. So take aim order may be beneficial. And for that, I would bring in something like a Castellan or a platoon command squad so that you can benefit from orders, and potentially with the platoon command squad, the platoon keyword, if you're one of the heavy options. So that is another kind of workaround, by the way. So just screening with infantry units and getting them within 6 inches and keeping them within 6 inches is great. But having a platoon command squad, say on its own or attached to a 10-man unit and sitting on your back objective within 6 inches of this unit, can also work. I mean, that counts as a platoon unit. And therefore, you can get your improved Overwatch and hit on 4s. Or say you run the platoon command squad just independent. Just a cheap 60 points right there in the back, just chucking out orders with their Master Vox, 24-inch range. And so you're tossing orders onto your heavy weapons. With direct line of sight, that means you'll be hitting on 3s. Okay? 3s. Overwatch will be hitting on 4s, but regular fire hitting on 3s would take aim. Whoo! I mean, that's especially with like the heavy bolters, which have sustained hits 1, that gets really spicy. I mean, you could really rack up a lot of hits on a heavy bolter squad, which is why they're one of my favorite heavy weapon options. Now, the 3 las cannons, that's going to be more hit or miss. So let's talk about each individual weapon. I love the heavy bolters. They kill Space Marines. They just annihilate Space Marines. They're really good at it, or other elites. Sometimes you can chip away at vehicles a little bit, that strength 5 and that flat 2 damage with the -1 AP. Not bad. And you're going to get a decent number of hits because they're 3 shots each, 9 shots. And with sustained hits 1, you might get an extra shot in there. So maybe 10, you hit 5 times. Or if you're hitting on 3s, you'll hit, maybe 6 times or 7 times. And then hopefully you're getting about half of those through, maybe less. But that's killing 2 or 3 Space Marines or, anything else you might be shooting at. So they're really effective. Just an all good, well-rounded unit, heavy bolters. Las cannons, going to get 3 shots. Expect one of these to hit. Just set yourself up for emotional success by expecting one to hit, and when 3 hit, just jump with glee, right? And so then with their strength 12, you're really going to be wounding most everything on 4s, if not 5s, if not 3s even. But with that strength 12, you're going to be wounding most things on 3s and 4s. And then with their AP -3 and D6 +1 damage, it's really not bad. It's invulnerable saves you're going to have to be scared of. And these things can really do some harm and could be great anti-armor setups on the table, or anti-monster. For the autocannons, I love these also for elites and vehicles. At strength 9, they can really damage light armored vehicles like Drukhari transports, or they can take out elites. Say if you're playing another guard army and they have sentinels, these are great against sentinels. They'll be wounding those on 3s. So there's lots of versatility to the autocannon, and I actually think the autocannon is one of the best heavy weapon options now in 10th edition. I think it's also a very well-rounded weapon. The downside to it, you just don't get as many shots. You only get 6 shots with a 3 base squad here, 3 model squad, versus like 9 shots or more because of sustained hits with the heavy bolters. But when you hit, it's going to matter. That flat 3 damage is a big deal and really puts a hurting on a lot of things. For instance, Terminators, right? And then finally, we have the mortars. I've already talked about those and their strategy. Missile launchers, they're very versatile. So that's the great reason to take those, is you can set them up almost anywhere. And then they can just change their fire mode from frag to crack and really just kind of stick it to your opponents. Now, the other buff that you want to keep in mind, besides having a platoon unit within 6 inches, so you get those improved overwatches and doing take aim, is the Fields of Fire stratagem to get an additional AP -1. That's really, really good. And here's why. 1, for like your autocannons, now AP -2, heavy bolters, AP -2, las cannons, AP -4. Suddenly your efficiency has shot up. I mean, that's a whole pip on the die roll that you're taking away from your opponent on their saves. And that's really important. So you give them take aim and then Fields of Fire. And then usually if you're shooting heavy weapons at something, you're probably wanting to kill that unit anyways. And other units from your army will be shooting that same unit, also benefiting from Fields of Fire. And so that's a really great way to do it. I would recommend even doing it with your sentinels. If you have scout sentinels out there and they got anything, autocannons, heavy flamers, plasma cannons, whatever. And then the next thing you know, you do Fields of Fire, and then all your other stuff starts shooting and gets that extra AP -1. And it's just that much more deadly. And that's a really, really great way to kind of approach that. So with that, your heavy weapons teams can be very effective. And it's also a lot of heavy weapons for currently points costs that are cheaper than most battle line units. Which, I mean, you can't beat that at the current points efficiency. Now, I'm not going to discuss the specific points. They change every 3 to 4 months. But right now they're very efficient. So it's kind of worth it to splash these in and bring them in with your army and try them out. Now, if you're playing narrative games, you could also put them in like fortifications and so forth that are in Legends. We only have the Aegis defense line right now, but if you have the old Bastions or Aquilian Stronghold or things like that, you could throw these in there and they could shoot out of it. That's a lot of fun. If you're not playing narrative games and you're playing regular games, right? Another very, very viable strategy is you throw these inside of a transport that has firing deck, like a Chimera or a Stormlord or any of those other transports that you can shoot your heavy weapons out of. And now you have just autocannons and heavy bolters and las cannons especially, which is wild. You can shove so many of these inside of a Stormlord and have them shoot out. And just lay waste into your opponent. And it's really mean. I mean, it's not a nice way to play. If you rock up to a friendly game and you bring a Stormlord and you just have like as many las cannons as you can pack into the back of that Stormlord, I don't know if your opponent's going to want to play with you again. And then don't forget, if you take Lord Solar Leontis and then you order the transport, right? Technically, these shoot as if they were the transport model when you're using the firing deck rules. So if you give the transport take aim, now the heavy weapons team inside technically benefits from take aim. Now, since they're not on the battlefield and they're inside of a transport, they can't do Overwatch. So you lose their unit ability. But the trade-off to keep them alive inside of a transport while driving around just harassing people is also a lot of fun and hilarious. So it's kind of a fun way to play them a little bit differently, right? And surprise people, because they're not always going to expect you to just have a bunch of heavy weapons in the back of your transports. That's the way I used to do it. And actually 7th edition and earlier, I used to put a heavy weapons unit, just a single model, on an infantry squad, stick them in the back of a Chimera, and have them just running around shooting las cannons or autocannons out of the back of a Chimera, which was a lot of fun to do. Even modeled one of my Chimeras, the hatches open, just so I could kind of show that off, which was a really interesting thing to model at the time. So that's another very viable strategy for these. Would I put them in the reserves? No. Would I move them around much? No, especially since they have heavy and only ballistic skill 5. Unless that 6-inch movement is really going to help you kill a key enemy unit, and you need them to get into place to be able to do that. And then you better hope that you don't stick them out too far and then they get bad touched, right? Because they will just disappear as soon as the enemy looks at them. They're only T3 with a 5-up save. There's nothing keeping this unit alive other than good placement and good screening. That's it. And lucky dice rolls. So just keep that in mind. It's better to play this unit reserved than it is to be aggressive with a unit like this. That's really it. That's all I have for this unit and just kind of my overall strategy with it. I think the diversity of the heavy weapon squads is really wonderful, and I highly recommend kind of getting several of these and trying them out. Build all the different weapons. Build mortars, build autocannons, build heavy bolters, build missile launchers, build las cannons. I think they're all worth it, and they all have a different role. It depends on how you want to build your army, your style of play, or the gaps you have and how you want to fill those, right? And there's all kinds of different ways to do that. So just kind of keep that in mind. It's actually why I started with autocannons here for the new Cadian kit, is because I think they're very versatile in the new edition. And I really didn't like my paint job on my old one, so I started with these. And I've been very happy that I've done that. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed this unit review. If you did, please like and subscribe if not already. I know only about half of you are subscribed, so I'd really appreciate it if you did and came back for more unit reviews, battle reports, painting tutorials, and everything else I do here on the channel. It is much appreciated. I don't put anything behind a paywall. It's all here for you all to watch for free. And I just want to give back to the community. You are really great. If you want to give back to me, there are links below for affiliate programs or even my merchandise that you can buy. I just started my merchandise store, so bear with me as I add more to it. It's not really my forte, but I got t-shirts and mugs and a painting apron, mind you, in case you don't want to get paints on your nice clothes while you get your army put together. That is also available there in the link down below. But also, if I missed anything, if you think there's something in this unit review that we should have talked about, or is there something we should have dived in deeper, please comment down below and let's have a conversation. The more we talk, the more we learn, and the more we learn, the better we play the game. The better we play the game, the more fun we all have. That's what we're here for. So, as always, have fun wargaming, and remember, Cadia stands.